Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Book of Love podcast with your matchmaker and dating coach, Geneva Dickey. This is a podcast that interviews singles, experts, authors, and special guests to discuss dating in today's dating culture. This is chapter 49, titled Bless and Release, with our amazing guest, Lily, who was a top matchmaker at the largest firm in the US. After matching hundreds of people, she realized that with coaching, women can become their own expert matchmakers to find better dates for themselves than anyone else ever could. Now, as the founder of Date Brazen, she helped hundreds of women around the world build badass dating lives that lead to extraordinary relationships through unconventional coaching and transformative community. Before we get started, I would like to apologize for the audio quality of this episode. We are still in lockdown here in Nova Scotia. And so I'm recording this from the Women's Council House, which is right on the corner of Inglis and Yonge Avenues. So we get all of those souped up cars bombing down to Point Pleasant Park from a four-way stop. So if you hear any of that, just think of it as COVID times. We do what we can. Just some updates here at JE Matchmaking. For all of you in the Book of Love, I'm sure you know that most of our matchmaking design dates have been put on hold during lockdown. I would love to still go with virtual dates, but unfortunately, with the third lockdown, people just seem to be wanting to wait patiently for this lockdown to be over to really launch into their dating lives. And so we've kind of put those one-on-one dates on hold from the Book of Love. But as you saw last week, our June event calendar has been launched. Each event has been designed to be in person in the hopes that we will be able to meet in person again, although it's not looking good that this will actually happen, especially for those events earlier in June, but we are hopeful. So every single one of those events is initially designed in person, because I wanted to organize everything in person with the hopes that we could still meet in person, but they all can be switched to virtual relatively quickly. So again, if you guys have picked up tickets for those or you are on the wait list, we will be telling you 5 days prior to the event on if it's moving virtual or not. So please do not contact us asking for updates prior to that 5 day before the event, because your guess is as good as ours at that point. And I think 5 days is appropriate to wait to see if we can switch it virtual or if we can meet in person. So, for example, the brewery crawl will turn from hopping from brewery to brewery to have a nice selection of craft beer delivered to our door and to enjoy together virtually. Our dinner for six will include either an Uber Eats delivery or a predetermined recipe for all of us to enjoy together. Boardroom games night will just include a virtual games night, which was so much fun. We did 3. We were hoping for 4. The older age range did not sell out the men's tickets, of course, but we were able to get 3 in there and it was so much fun and we created lots of great matches. So we do what we can. So the majority of women's tickets are sold out for those events in June, but the boardroom nights, there are still a lot of spots open. So if you want to get into a singles event, that one is still open for women. So go check that out. There's lots of guys' tickets left. Now, I know, gentlemen, you like to wait till closer to the date to see if the event is going to shift or just know what's going on in your schedule closer to the event. But it would be so helpful if you could pick up those tickets earlier rather than later so that we can plan these events accordingly. Now, don't hesitate to pick up a waitlist ticket because the longer the waitlist, the more likely we're going to be doing those events more often. For example, the brewery crawl sold out very quickly and we have a large wait list, which means that probably in July, August, we're going to do more brewery crawls because people seem to love it. And so throw your name on the wait list. It's also very helpful. Sometimes we go all the way up to number 12 when the event comes and a spot opens. So you never know if you're going to be able to squeeze into an event when the time comes. So that is enough about JE matchmaking. Let's jump into today's special episode with Lily.
Well, thank you so much, Lily, for joining us today. How's everything going in New York?
It's good. It's feels so beautiful outside. I'm so grateful. Oh my God. And I'm about to go see my family for the first time since 2019. So I'm really excited about that.
Where are they at?
They're in Birmingham, Alabama, so way down south. And then Chris, my partner's family, is in Beaumont, Texas. So we're then going to go to Beaumont, Texas, and then we're going to go to Austin, Texas. So I mean, if you would have told me a year ago that we would have been making this trip, I would have been like, no way, So I'm so grateful that it's possible.
Oh, that's exciting. Congratulations. So I'm just going to start with the first question that I ask every single guest, but I think that you're going to have such an amazing perspective because, you're not dating, but you do help a lot of singles. So you see it from all angles. Tell me, what do you think is the biggest struggle in today's dating world?
Yeah. So I think that, there are so many things that make dating hard in 2021. I think that the narrative that it should just be, and I say this in quotes, just be easy, is actually really harmful because even though we have more tools than ever to date and find love and partnership, it only intensified the difficulty that people have on their way to getting there. So I think that I have an external answer and an internal answer. My external answer is dating apps suck, right? And they were built like slot machines. They were built to addict users. They've literally hijacked the pleasure center of our brain to continue to crave cheap rewards like a match or a message. And then people who are using dating apps think, oh, I'm making progress because I got that match or a message. And they don't realize maybe how addicted they are to the platform. They're playing the numbers game because that's what their mom and their cousin and their coworker told them to do. And it only leads to burnout. It only leads to burnout and dissatisfaction. And I see so many people feeling gaslit in a way because they're being told by the outside world, it should be easy. It should be easy. You have all the apps and just play the numbers game. But then in reality, the reality is that cognitive overload in your brain makes it so that your higher functioning shuts down after, your brain can't handle any more information. Like there are so many 33% of all dating app users will never go on a date from that platform, right? So there are so many reasons why dating is difficult. And I wish more people had that understanding because I also want to say like dating apps are not out to help you. They're out to make money.
Mhm.
So that's why I make the argument for you've got to be in the driver's seat. You've got to get in control of your process. You have to date and find love intentionally so that you can save your heart time along the way. That's my external answer. My internal answer is that, I work with single badass women who are successful in every other aspect of their life except for dating.
Mhm.
And most of the successful badass women that I work with feel like a failure because they haven't been able to figure this part of their life out yet.
Mhm.
And so I see a deep, deep problem with women not giving themselves permission to want what they want or
Yeah.
fear that it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And so that's why so many women settle and then eventually get divorced or eventually, have to break up. That's why so many women feel miserable, I think a lot of times because there's this cognitive dissonance between I know what I want, I'm successful, I'm high achieving, I can say what I want on paper, and that disconnect between but does it exist? And I don't know if what I want exists. Am I being too picky? Can I really trust myself? Can I really trust my instincts? So ultimately I think it's an issue of women not taking up the space that they need to in their own dating lives.
Oh my gosh, that's such an amazing answer. Number one. Now, okay, this isn't a prompt question, but let's talk about pickiness. My clients come in and they're amazing boss women that are doing amazing things. And all of their friends and all their family say, you're just being too picky. You're just being too picky. The first thing that I say majority of the time, depending on the woman, you're not actually being too picky at all. That's almost like a slur word that gets thrown around to all these amazing women to make them feel bad for something that nobody understands. What is your mindset around too picky or being picky?
Right. I think that picky, like, oh my God, so many words mean so many different things to all of us, right? Which is why you have to really get beneath the surface of your preferences because what you said, what picky means to me is different than to you. So I'm really glad we're getting into this. So I think that pickiness, when I think of pickiness, I think of someone with a lot of walls up. This is one type of pickiness. There's a different, I think that we'll talk about the nuances here, but one nuance of pickiness is I've got a lot of walls up and I'm not allowing anybody past those walls because nobody is good enough for me. I think that that's what family and friends perceive their loved ones doing when they aren't finding love quickly.
Mhm.
Your family and friends, ultimately, listeners, and I wonder what you think about this, but they want the best for you. They want you to be happy. And they are also used to women being coupled. I mean, I come from the deep South where a woman's value is deeply intertwined with whether or not she's in a heterosexual relationship with a cisgendered man.
Mhm.
And so people want the best for you. And also they want what they chose for themselves for you. So people in your life probably are saying you're too picky because you haven't found love on their schedule.
Mhm.
Okay. So, but I do think that in terms of individually, when you think about pickiness, there is I think pickiness can be an expression of scarcity.
Mhm.
So the fear that what you want, maybe you fear that what you want isn't possible. So you are setting a lot of barriers up to entry for people to enter. So your brain can prove itself right. See, I'm
Mhm.
right. There is nobody out there for me. So therefore I'm picky, but I'm picky because I don't want to find the right person, but really you're just protecting yourself against being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And then the opposite of that is people who have such an open mind that they're not actually admitting any of the preferences that they actually have.
Ooh, what does that mean?
Have you ever encountered somebody who's just like, I just want somebody nice,
Yeah, I just want someone who's kind, who's nice, and who can
someone who's
love.
nice, who's like, it just makes me feel good. I mean, that's the bare minimum, right? We want that for you, of course, but like, how about we want something more? How about we express how we want to feel? How about we get to have standards? So I think that pickiness can be an expression of scarcity thinking. But when you do the internal work, which is why I pivoted from matchmaking to date coaching
Mhm.
about 4 years ago, when you do the internal work of defining what it is you want, exploring your deeper mindset blocks about what you want, and then learning how to courageously communicate what you want in person, then it's a good thing to have standards. It's a good thing to be picky. But I think that it starts with the internal work first to really understand what you deeply desire and how to
Mhm.
communicate it.
I usually pair pickiness, and my listeners have heard this before, but I usually pair pickiness into two groups. So there's woman A and woman B. Woman A is considered picky. Woman B is considered picky. Woman A says no to everybody because he wears his hat on backwards, or
Yeah.
whatever it may be, or something like
Yeah.
that. Woman B is considered picky, but
Yeah.
she's out meeting people. She's dating. She is
Yes.
adjusting her list of what she wants and what she doesn't want as she's out there doing it. So yes, technically two are considered picky, quote unquote, but the two different behaviors are separate, and one is more productive and one isn't.
Yeah, you said it in such a clearer way than I did. Thank you.
Oh no, you said it way clearer. But I actually do want to visit the fact of you transitioning from matchmaking to dating coaching,
Yeah,
because
girl.
I am fascinated by that. And I really, really wanted to talk to you, even though you aren't a matchmaker anymore. I do want to, I'm fascinated by the transition from matchmaking to dating coaching and what that looked like.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, I began my career in the feminist nonprofit space. So, like feminist advocacy, well-being of women and girls has always been at the forefront of my purpose. And so, and I see you like nodding. Yes. Do you feel the same? Great,
Yes.
great. So I was there, I was enjoying being in a helping profession, but I got burnt out very quickly. And I took a hard left turn. I moved to New York because I just wanted to live there and I wanted to live my dream. And I needed a job. I mean, it just it started out very banal like that. Just I needed a job. And a friend knew that a matchmaking firm was hiring. And so I began the process of applying, and it was a very rigorous application and interview process where we would be in a Zoom room with 10 other applicants and one moderator. And the moderator would be like, okay, Lily, you've set up a date, and her date just walked in the door and he took one look at her and then he left. And you have to break the news to your client that happened. Go. How do you do that? And it was so intense, and it was sort of sink or swim. I swam. And I think that that's because I really wanted to understand these women and I wanted to get beneath the surface with them. And I also saw very quickly that dating was this microcosm of everything for people. Like every hope, dream, fear, insecurity, desire that we have as human beings, it's in your dating life. So when I was able to help women see what they wanted was possible on a date, it helped them feel like their well-being was improving. And so I loved that. So I got really good at it. I was the third most successful out of 160 at this national firm.
Kennedy, that's amazing.
Yeah, so I knew a lot of matchmakers. I was colleagues with a lot of matchmakers, and it was great to work with women on that level. And I myself at the time was in a really toxic romantic relationship. So I met this guy on Bumble. We fell in love quickly. He was one of my first adults, relationships. I was a little bit of a late bloomer. So in like my mid 20s, my first relationship, and it was really bad. It was really toxic. I mean, I remember begging him to love me the way I wanted to be loved. I remember making my needs so small to accommodate him, and not be feeling safe to voice my preferences, not because he was abusive, but because I didn't know that I could want what I wanted, and I didn't know that I was worthy of it. So I remember like crying on his bathroom floor, like, this isn't working. And then 15 minutes later, taking a matchmaking call, being like, you deserve so much better. Like, let's get you out on some great dates. There's this disconnect between what I was saying to my clients and what I was accepting for myself. And so I realized this chasm, and I needed to figure out how to fix it. Like, I needed to be in alignment finally in my personal and professional life. And so I looked at matchmaking. I was like, oh, well, maybe matchmaking after we break up, after maybe matchmaking would work for me. But I gathered the data from my anecdotal data and then the data that I knew from my colleagues. And matchmaking was only working for a small percentage of those clients. And I think that that's because of a lot of reasons. But one of them is that, and I love that you do a hybrid of coaching and matchmaking, because I think that a deeper solution is necessary when you're talking about finding love, deeper than just a date. And also this idea that some of my clients, most of my clients would come to me with, which is, I failed on my own. I need somebody to do it for me because I've obviously failed. So I need somebody else to fix it. And that is a disempowering idea. So I knew I didn't want to do matchmaking for myself. I knew that my therapist didn't know what to tell me. And I knew that my friends and family just told me to play the numbers game. And I knew that from swiping professionally as a matchmaker, I knew that swiping like it was a numbers game only led to burnout and dissatisfaction. So I started to explore, what is a deeper solution here? And I started to ask myself really hard questions. I was being coached at the time by a life coach. And I realized that I had this internal story that I was, quote, too much, and that I
Mhm.
wanted too much, and that I was too much. And that was driving my actions. And so when I realized that, I could be like, okay, how can I recognize and eliminate and rewrite this story throughout my dating life? What is beyond my checklist? Like, this dude that I was with, who was a bad relationship, was everything I said I wanted on my checklist. So what happened? So date coaching was getting beneath the surface of my checklist, looking at what I deeply desired, unpacking those stories, and then I started date coaching my matchmaking clients, and they started finding better dates for themselves than I or anybody else could find for them. For myself, this work meant I was happy being single. I was finding joy in my dating life. And I ended up finding and falling in love with Chris, my partner, who is the most incredible person on the planet. And I would have been blind to him had I not done this work.
Yep. I love that so much. That's such an amazing story. And I want to revisit you saying too much, because I have so many amazing women that come through my office, as well as men as well. But they say, I know I'm too much. People say I'm too much, but I don't feel like it's too much. So how did you unpack that, quote unquote, too much, and really balance that, or come to terms with that, or whatever it was? What would you say to
Yeah.
the women out there that think they're too much?
I would say first you've got to start with self-compassion. So when I say I was too much, I mean, my mom told me when I was 12 that I was a really strong spice and that I wasn't for everybody, and also that I would have a hard time finding a husband because my personality was so much. So my brain, because I was raised in the South, because I knew that romantic relationship determined a woman's value there, I knew that my mother's statement was a life sentence of loneliness, or at least that's how I felt.
Mhm.
And so I learned behavior to protect myself from being rejected, which meant I played small. I made myself smaller. And so if you're recognizing now as an adult that, hey, I have this internal story that I'm too much, take a seat, take your journal out, take it way on back. When's the first time I remember feeling this way? Who taught me this? How was I taught this? What did I believe about myself because of that instance, right? Like self-compassionately look in the rearview mirror and say, hey, because you can recognize I have the thought that I have too much, I'm too much, but what really drives your brain crazy are then the judgmental thoughts about I shouldn't think that. I'm enough. I'm like this angry opposite toxic positivity. Like I'm enough. I'm okay. The right person will find me. So it's not the thought I'm too much that is the trouble. It's the judgment that you have about yourself. So slow down, feel compassion for that younger you who was taught that she was different, right? And then the more you can bring compassion to that younger self, the more she can calm down. And the more you can say, okay, now that I'm unpacking this story with compassion, I'm ready to rewrite the ending. I'm ready to rewrite a new version of this in which how about let's neutralize it? I have a personality.
Yes.
I have preferences, right? And then once you date with this idea, with this thought, if it feels true to you, I have preferences, I have a personality, you can experience so much more freedom because you're no longer beholden to other people's judgments of you to determine your worth.
Mhm. Let's talk about that journey of meeting your man, because the thing is, what I found, these women that say they're too much, when we really get them out there dating and meeting people, that person that they end up with, they don't care that they're quote unquote too much or whatever it is. They actually, that is what they love most about these women is
Yeah.
their personality and what they're bringing to the table. So
Right.
talk about that journey a little bit with you and your man that you ended up with.
Yeah. So, Chris, I was doing this internal work. I was like date coaching myself. I was walking the walk, talking the talk. And I found myself, I was on an app. I think an app is an amazing resource, but it's just one resource, right? So, I teach my clients how to date on an app so that it amplifies their in person dating life, which is what happened for me. I met him on a rooftop at his birthday party. I was invited by a mutual friend. And it wasn't a setup because I was in that toxic relationship at the time.
Mhm.
And so I just went for fun and I met him and he was cooking for everybody and he was so sweet. And I thought he was really cute, but I didn't think anything romantic because I was so hung up mentally on my current partner who I was trying to figure out that relationship. So that was June. We met 4 years ago, June. And then in July 4th, like American Independence Day, we met again on the same rooftop. And he came up to me and said, hey, at the end of the party, I was about to leave. Hey, it's a shame that you have a boyfriend because I wanted to sex you up. You know that song, like, I want to sex you up. I was like, he was making a joke, obviously, but I was like, this guy thinks he's fucking with me and I'm not going to have it.
Oh, wow. That's
I'm
so
not
great.
going to have it. So then I look at him and I was like, well, because part of the reason it was toxic is because I agreed to an open relationship, which I did not want. So I said, well, my relationship's open. So why don't we go downstairs to the bathroom and bang it out right now? And he was like, I saw his brain break. He was like, I don't, okay. Like I called him on this joke, and I didn't want to go bang it out necessarily, but I felt something there. It was like flirty, funny tension. And like, I call it a pussy tingle. Like I got a PT, I got a PT. And then he just slowly, as my relationship before started to disintegrate, he just started to slowly make himself known in my life. He made it known to our mutual friends that he thought I was attractive. He made it known that he would be interested in going on a date. He made it known to me in different ways. He started showing up for me, which I never thought a man would do. So I'm a singer and I was singing at a cabaret show. And while this was the last time I ever saw my ex, it was very dramatic. My ex was in the back of the room and had to leave the show early. And Chris was in the front row, like
Yeah.
sitting there waiting for me with flowers with our mutual friend. And so after that, after I broke up with the ex, I spent a little time being single, but Chris kept sort of popping up in my brain. He asked me out. I said, no, I'm not ready. And then a couple months after that, I started having dreams about him.
Mm.
And I had dreams that he was my partner and that the sun was shining on my face and we were holding hands in the dream. And it just felt so right in my body. So I reached out and said, hey, you still want to go out? And then we got together in November 2017, and we've been together ever since.
Oh, wow. I love that. Not the
Yeah.
conventional story, that's for sure, but it's like an awesome story.
Thank you. Yeah. And we just got engaged officially a couple weeks ago, and we're so excited to make this next step.
Well, congratulations. That's so amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, so when I started the journey of becoming a matchmaker slash dating coach, the techniques and like the tips that I was learning myself very much applied to my dating life. Was the learning curve just as steep? Like it was really steep for me. Like basically in 2 years, I learned I had no idea about how men thought, how to date or anything. And in 2 years, I was basically a dating expert myself, like personally. Was it the same for you on that journey?
I think so, but I was learning through a lot of learning is hard. No matter what, growth is hard. But I think I was learning on the job as I was being given clients. So, you have built this beautiful business on your own terms. It's yours, right? I was a matchmaker at a firm. And so there was no education. There was no like training on how to be a good matchmaker. They gave you the basics, but then it was up to you to sink or swim. And I had to learn through a lot of trial and error. Honestly, my first 2 years of being a matchmaker before I like made the top list, I mean, it was really hard. I set up a lot of bad dates, and I wanted to please my clients, and I had trouble telling them what I saw was going on. And I also, was just trying to keep a job, honestly, like it was just so complicated. So I did learn those first 2 years of matchmaking so much about attraction, so much about mental blocks that people have up towards going on a first date. I mean, I remember one of my clients who shall remain nameless. She was a very difficult client, and she was divorced. She was very sure that she knew what she wanted. And I called her on a Friday and I was like, I have a date for you, and he's ready for a date tomorrow if you are free tomorrow. And she goes, what the fuck is wrong with him that he's free on a day's notice? I was like, oh, I didn't know how to tell her at the time. But looking back, I would have told her this reaction is a response to your deeper insecurities and your deeper issues. And so there's the work that you need to do.
Oh my gosh. That's a hard conversation to have. Would you have had that conversation if it was later on in your career?
I did, but I wasn't as straightforward. I was like, well, what do you think that means that you said that? Right. Like I was like trying to tiptoe around it. But that's why I really enjoy working for myself. That's why I really enjoy having my own business. That's why I really enjoy not matchmaking anymore. Honestly, I love that you're doing what you do. And I know that you do it well. And I know that for some people it works, and that's amazing. And I want people to find love, however they find love and whoever they decide to work with. But for me, it's like, I really want, no matter if a package ends with, like there was so much pressure on a 6 date package,
Yeah.
so much pressure. And
Packages, I do pay as you go with no guarantee of matching.
great, great.
I did packages when I first started. I was like, what am I thinking? That pressure is insane.
That's a lot of pressure. And people would leave that package feeling like, well, I don't know how to do this on my own, and I don't want to continue to pay thousands of dollars for this thing. So I love that now I have created a system for women to build an authentic, powerful strategy so that they are in the driver's seat, so that they can find the best dates of their life and the best relationship of their life on their own timing and on their own terms.
Yeah. I want you to take a minute and just do a quick plug on what it is that you're doing and what you're working on. Tell people where they can find you, and you have this amazing 3-step program that I would love for you to share. So just completely do a full plug right now.
Oh, thank you. So generous and kind. So, and I want you to do a plug too, because bragging is breath. And when you invite me to brag, I want to invite you to brag. So I created the Brazen Breakthrough about 3 years ago, and have been guiding hundreds of women from around the world through the Brazen Breakthrough. It's fundamentally a coaching experience to completely transform the trajectory of your dating life, to build confidence in every dating decision that you make, to build joy in every dating decision that you make. And tactically, what that looks like is 4 months of group coaching and monthly one-on-one coaching with me and my team. And so you're with a small group of badass single women just like you who are moving their dating lives forward. You're being uplifted by them. You are being inspired by them. You see each other struggle, each other soar. And along the way, you're illuminating your deeper essence-based preferences. You're building a tactical strategy based on that reflective information. You're reigniting your dating life with this community, and you're propelling yourself into the best dates and best relationship of your life. So that's the Brazen Breakthrough. And if anybody wants to find out more, they can go to datebrazen.com. And I open the doors seasonally. So spring, summer, fall, winter, those doors open.
Yeah. So you also host a podcast. Tell us about the podcast.
Yes. Oh my God. The podcast, the Date Brazen podcast, is where I give all of my hot takes. There are some episodes with just me giving my advice, doing Q&A. Most recently, and I would love your take on this, I have a couple of clients who have had exes reach out to them and say, hey, how's it going? And like, my clients are like, why is this person contacting me? They broke up with me. We met through a dating app. So I just gave all of my hot takes on that scenario. We also have guests on mindfulness and the patriarchy and your dating life. It's a great place to be in conversation with other feminist women.
Oh, I love it. What do you think about the ex reaching out? I think 100%.
What do you think about it?
I think every single time an ex is going to reach out, and very likely doesn't have anything to do with them wanting to get back together. It's kind of just based out of loneliness and insecurity.
Yes, absolutely.
Whenever somebody breaks up, I'm like, just so you know, in 2 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, you're going to hear from them again. It's going to happen. And it's going to happen when you have finally started to get over it. And he senses it, and that's when he's going to do it. And the same happens to men with women. Women, they sense it and they'll reach out. So it's going to happen, but I just feel like if we expect it to happen, we know it's coming, it'll be less of a shock and less emotional, but usually it has nothing to do with the relationship or you.
Right. Absolutely agree. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agree. I love that what you're saying energetically, that it's sensed when you're about to move on, they sense it.
Yeah.
That's really good.
They do sense it. Absolutely. The Q&A is fun, isn't it? It allows you to stay on your feet. And like when we get inspiration from those callers or those questions or those guests, podcasts are so powerful. I love it.
Well, what do you think is the biggest struggle that singles deal with? I'm just so curious of your perspective on that.
It honestly depends on the day. My answer depends on the day. Gosh, the biggest struggle. There's so many to really talk about, and I don't really like focusing on the struggles or the negativity of it all. But I think I agree with you with the fact that society and culture tells us that it should be easy. So the world or our lives and happiness and success is a tripod: career, health, and relationships. Career and health, we will spend thousands and thousands of dollars and thousands of hours to get the best career and the best job. To become healthy, we don't just jump on a treadmill and expect to be on the treadmill for 17 hours and then we'll be fit. It's like a habit-based thing where we bring in dietitians. And yet for some reason, when it comes to relationships, either friendship or peers, and especially romance, we're just expected to know. We're expected to know how to do it. We're expected to know how to communicate. We're expected to know how to date. But nobody's teaching this. And yet everybody thinks that if you don't already know it, then there's something wrong with you. And it's so not the case, because it's one of the 3 most important things in people's lives. We need to invest just as much money and time in being an expert at that as everything else.
Yes.
That's what I would think. Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Oh my gosh. It's like you have your own podcast and you're like, it's
a give and take. It's a give and take.
It is a give and take. Okay. I'm going to just kind of bring this down to 2 more questions. I had a million questions to ask you, but I'm going to bring it down to 2 more. My favorite thing that you said. So I went on to, you guys, one of her webinar series around Christmas time. She had confetti, she had energy. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And I just started vibrating. But one of the terms that you said in your webinar series was bless and release, which I think is such a powerful term when you're out dating, because a lot of people have a hard time releasing those people that they're meeting.
Yes.
So tell me where you got that from, your mindset around the bless and release term.
I am petrified that I'm not going to credit somebody who gave me this, but I think I made it up. I think that it was this idea of catch and release. I thought of like catch and release in fishing. And there's a Jennifer Garner movie from forever ago that was called Catch and Release that I loved. This idea of bless and release really stuck with me because so many of my clients in matchmaking and in now date coaching were having trouble, like you were saying, like they'd meet somebody great. That great person didn't work out ultimately, or they didn't fit their preferences, and they would need to move on, but they would be holding on energetically or physically to that other human being because I think of the fear that maybe if I release this person, am I actually going to find what I want? It's sort of this. I think of your dating life like your romantic life and your relational life like a garden. You have a plot of land and you only have room for your plants in that plot. You don't have room for every plant that you've ever come across, and there's some weeds that have flown in there. So I think of like, it's difficult for some people and very emotional to like dig up an old plant that doesn't fit anymore and to give it away or to bless and release it. And so this idea of blessing and releasing is really, I like to come back to the Brene Brownism: clear is kind and unclear is unkind. And so when you are wishy-washy on, oh, I know that I need to like not be seeing this person anymore, but I don't know, I don't want to hurt their feelings, or I don't want to, that is unclear and unkind both to you and to that other person. And so blessing and releasing can be a way to be clear and kind both with yourself and the other person who also wants to find the right person for them. And if you feel like they're not right for you, then you're not right for them. So it only makes sense to really give yourself the permission to honor what you had. That's the blessed part. Even if it was just a few messages back and forth. Thank you for chatting with me. Thanks for going on that date. Honoring it, blessing it, and then saying, and I don't feel a romantic connection, that both and I don't feel a romantic connection and I wish you the best. Right? It's not, I'm so sorry, I'm just not feeling it. And I'm sorry, I wish I was, and la 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 la. No. Thank you for your time. I'm not feeling a romantic connection and I wish you the best. And people have trouble believing that something else is going to come into their plot of land, like into their beautiful garden. But inevitably, whenever any of my clients truly blesses and releases somebody, like better people come and flow in.
I think that shift, when we have the courage to be able to do that, I think that will shift our entire dating life, honestly. Because if you have the courage, even if it's a text message or a phone call, which by the way, it just has to be a text message, if it's 2-3 dates, like you don't have to have this big outing to end it with somebody. But when you have the courage to be able to do that properly in a clear way, which is amazing, don't give a ton of compliments. I don't know why people give a ton of compliments when they're going to just say, I'm not interested. All of those compliments don't mean anything anymore.
I think it's because they're afraid of what blessing and releasing says about them. They're afraid of looking like a bad person or being judged by that other person. And here's the deal. We are never in control of the impact of what we say. We are only in control of the intention with which we say it. And the impact is something that we can't own that, but we can, if it's okay, let's say I have a friendship and I need to tell this friend that I needed a break from her or something, or I can't hang out. We made this plan. My intention is to love her, be honest. And I share my truth and her feelings are hurt by it. I can say, I'm sorry that the impact was negative. Can I hear more about that? She's my friend. I want to hear about her feelings. But in terms of dating, we're not in control of the impact of what we say or what we need on another person. Our only job is to have the intention of loving ourselves and loving other human beings by being clear. And so you can stand in your integrity by owning your intention and coming to that bless and release conversation. Again, it can be just over text. If it's a longer relationship, I would do it maybe in person, but you can come with the intention of love. What if you entered that conversation of blessing and releasing with the intention of loving that other person and loving yourself?
Oh, girl, that's going to be the little highlight that I'm going to send out, the little sound clip.
Great.
That whole thing. Okay, so we're going to finish this up. Please close the episode out with the most valuable advice you would give people out there that are struggling in the dating world.
Yes, self-compassion.
Okay.
Like literally go to Dr. Kristen Neff's website, NEFF. She's a leading expert in self-compassion. She has free meditations on there for self-compassion. Literally, if you are listening to this podcast, then at some point you have struggled with your dating life. Maybe you're struggling currently. You need to start having your own back. Don't push away the struggle. Don't push away the hard feelings. Embrace yourself. Give yourself space to process. Again, I believe dating is a microcosm of every hope, dream, fear, insecurity, desire that we have as humans. So it matters to your well-being. What if you treated dating like it mattered to your overall well-being? How would you treat yourself? What support would you seek out? What conversations would you have? How mindful could you be? How supported can you stand to let yourself be? So I think that my biggest piece of advice is to slow down and notice what is happening inside your brain and your body, because it matters to how you're taking action. So if you're struggling in silence or you're just trying to push through the struggle, that struggle is informing the action that you take. And I would imagine that that action is not empowered action. And so if you want to shift the status quo, then you've got to start with self-compassion, start with you, slow it down, and really look at, how could I do this on my terms? How could I do this in a kinder way to myself? So
Mhm.
that's my hot take.
Ooh,
Advice.
so good. My
Thank
gosh,
you.
Lily, what a wonderful afternoon treat you have been. You just like put a little bow on my afternoon and my day. It's
Oh, thank you.
energy, and I love the work that you're doing. When I first watched your webinar, I was like, she's actually doing some really, really important things, and you can tell by the growth of your business that other people feel the same way. So I'm just like your biggest fan.
Thank you so much. And I'm so grateful to be on this podcast. And thank you for sharing your heart and your space with me. I'm so grateful.
Oh my goodness, how amazing was that guest? I loved how willing Lily was to open up about her life, her personal life, her professional life, and really share that with us. She's got such a great mindset. And one thing I want you guys to all take from this is bless and release. What an amazing sentence. I'm going to use that, Lily. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to take that control of that, but I will also 100% credit you in the future. So please subscribe wherever it is you get your podcasts. Leave us 5-star rating and please leave a review. If you're listening to these podcasts and you're really getting a lot out of it, it would mean a lot to me if you could go give me a 5-star rating and leave a review. It is so, so, so important for those looking for worthwhile podcasts to listen to. It puts us up in the charts and it makes us more visible to other new listeners. Share, share, share as well. Share the love to all these amazing singles in your life. Lily's mindset may really impact a friend, family member, or coworker. So definitely give this a share and spread the love. And you're welcome to follow me on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at JE Matchmaking. To grab your tickets to an upcoming event, go to my website, jematchmaking.com/events. My website is basically the launching pad to all aspects of my business. So if you want to get into the book of love, you can book in your 15-minute consultation there. We have the events, all the event schedules and calendars are going to be on there. Our podcasts are on there. Any upcoming updates are on there. So definitely check that out. And I am so excited to open up the book of love with all of you.